Let's do it.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kalicube Tuesdays, the event I created to keep the podcast going during this period when I can't travel from conference to conference, interviewing people face to face. What I now get is to sit in front of a red brick wall, talking to somebody sitting in front of a green screen, which is lovely. Chase Reiner, absolutely delightful to meet you again and have you on the show.
Super glad to be here. I loved the last one, so I'm glad to be back on this one.
Great, and I love the t-shirt. I think that's an amazing t-shirt, and I'm terribly jealous.
Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Right, today we're going to be talking about SEO without link building, and I'm personally a big fan of that as an idea. And when you were talking about it last time, I just thought I have to know more about that. I mean, I think kind of it's going to be a bit of banter because we kind of agree, but I think you've got lots of techniques that I haven't really thought of. So you'll be sharing them with me, whether you like it or not. Really quick word before we get going. Two sponsors. We've got WordLift, great plugin for WordPress, working on schema markup, entity-based content model, which is the entire podcast is based on the entity-based content model I'm building with WordLift, and the results are amazing. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see the events the success that we've had with these events and the entities. Brilliant stuff at WordLift. And the other one is SEMrush. SEMrush, you can get 2 weeks Guru account free. I've done the 3 links there. One of which is for people who like camel case URLs, another one for people who like the underscore URLs, another one for those who like the hyphen URLs. 2 weeks Guru free. SEMrush are sponsoring us for 2 more weeks, so get in before the offer runs out. Brilliant stuff. Now, over to Chase. Quickly, with the entity-based content model with WordLift, we managed to get you in the knowledge graph indirectly. It's the big Chase today, hands nap, subtle as never. Can we have the screen for the Chases in the knowledge graph? If you look at the Kalicube tools, we see we've got a score of 12, which is pretty good for Chase Reiner associated with this event, Kalicube Tuesdays. And if you look on the right, you can see we've got the knowledge panel, which is really lovely. The unfortunate side effect of that is the next screenshot, which is since a couple of days ago, you have entities on your Brand SERP.
Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately for you, the first one is Ahrefs. And SEMrush are just down the other end, just beyond Alexa. Oh. And it's all SEO audit tools. So, Chase, you audit SEO and you're heavily associated with Ahrefs. You're not happy about that, are you?
Look, I love Ahrefs as a tool. I think they're great. I would like to have a little bit more of a relationship with them for sure. But look, they got some great stuff over there. And I think SEMrush also has some great stuff. Yep. I think it just really depends on, what your cup of tea is.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, I've been using SEMrush to track all this stuff. And we've got another webinar on SEMrush in a couple of weeks. No, it's next week, in fact. So at the moment, we're both hanging out with SEMrush. Wonderful tool, loads of stuff going on. And next week, we're talking about link building again. No, we're talking about something else. What are we talking about, Chase?
I think we're part 2 of what we talked about last time, which is, I think it might be on page.
Right. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, you were talking about kind of on-page audits and figuring out your on-page, and that was ace stuff. So now into the subject of today, which is SEO without link building. Now, what I hear there is links are no longer important, but that's not what you mean, is it?
No, not necessarily. I think links are definitely still a huge part of the algorithm, and I think they will be for probably a very long time. But I think they definitely have been getting devalued. I've been interviewing a ton of people recently that are really playing with user signals, and they're doing things that are probably less, what I would probably do, which is trying to build engagement in a natural way. And they're really seeing results from it. And whether they're creating like their own little community of, robots or maybe real people to go interact with them, whatever they're doing, their tests are showing that these interactions are leading to higher rankings, not just on Google, but on places like YouTube and Facebook. And so I think a lot of the time now, I think these platforms are trying to find ways to really interpret real signals rather than just maybe a link getting pointed to them like they have in the past. And yeah, so I mean, that's kind of what I want to talk about today is like, first of all, why? Second of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I even got into this. So people who might have never heard about me before kind of know what to expect, and then what can be done as well about all of this.
Well, I mean, you're a big YouTubey person, which is why you've got the green screen issues. What she's YouTuber. You've got 37.4 thousand subscribers. Obviously, you're very good at that. I mean, YouTube is all about engagement. It's all about user signals. Some cheap tricks putting nice titles in, but I mean, it's the user signals that are doing it. And we've been ranking pretty easily for people's personal names on YouTube through this series. We're having trouble with you, strangely enough, maybe because you've got so many videos and so much engagement. But you're saying now it's not just YouTube, that model now works with Google generally. Is that more or less it?
Yeah, I think it works with pretty much anything right now on the market. Like, look, if you think about YouTube, you think about Google, you think about Facebook, what these algorithms are trying to do, at least from what I've seen, is that it looks like when somebody interacts with a video or they interact with a blog post, you would think that these algorithms would want to naturally disperse that content to somebody that seems like that first person. Right. And so again, from what I'm seeing and from what I've been hearing is that if you look at these platforms, they're almost suggestion-based algorithms these days, where it's not as much just about ranking number one, it's about ranking number one for the actual person. Because if somebody interacts and they show a positive signal, then chances are these algorithms are going to try to give that person more content from the same brand or person.
Which comes beautifully back to what Jez Schultz was talking about last week. And last week I got her name wrong, and this week I've got it right, but she's not here to hear it. So that's a little bit unfortunate. But she was talking about Google Discover and the fact that Google is now pushing all this content to people. So it's actually no longer engagement and association. You were just saying associated with topics that we're into, or brands and topics we're interested in. Google Discover is all about that. And the rest of Google is going that way too. So being in the knowledge graph is essential to be an entity to be able to be associated with a topic that could then be associated with a user. Would you go with that?
Repeat it one last time, because that was a little bit of a mouthful.
Sorry, excuse me. It was a bit, Being an entity in the knowledge graph is essential to be able, as a brand, to be associated with a topic that the user will then be interested in. And Google is then associating the topics my brand is specialized in to the topics the user is interested in.
100%. And this comes back down to, like, if you're going to be creating a website, it's so much easier these days to niche down to something that you can be topically known for as like an entity. For instance, I have a gaming website, and instead of me talking about a bunch of different games, I'm going to be talking about one game in particular, because I want to be known for that phrase. So when I type in the brand, all this stuff starts popping up around those phrases. And the thing is you don't just want that again on Google. You want to be able to try to create that in an omnipresence way, where you have YouTube, you have Facebook, and you have, for instance, like with me, you type in Chase Reiner, and it's like instantly, it's like I'm associated with SEO tools. And I think that's actually a good signal, because it's saying, hey, this is a brand that people are typing in. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to user signals, because when people are typing in Chase Reiner SEO tools, Chase Reiner Ahrefs, Chase Reiner whatever, and they're looking up all these tutorials, and they're looking up all these things around it, I think makes it almost trains Google or whatever platform to understand who you are as an entity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obsessed by the term get Google to understand who you are and what you do. Make sure it thinks you're credible, and I think you're going to talk about reviews and other user signals around that. And then make sure that you're producing content that it can deliver to its users in the context they find themselves is actually useful to them. So my trio is understanding, credibility, and deliverability. And if you've got those three, you're pretty much away. And the credibility part is, I mean, it's not just reviews, but it's positive user signals showing that you're actually appreciated by your audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's all kinds of ways that you can actually create these signals. I think, for me at least.
Brilliant. Sorry, excuse me. Now we've got Chase Reiner, SEMrush. So there is that wonderful association, which is lovely. And I suspect we're now ranking number one, because what Google seems to be doing is, while these live streams are on, YouTube rather, not Google, the video pushes right to the top for the duration of the episode.
Well, and was that a screenshot from somebody being signed in? Because I actually haven't looked that up.
Right. Yeah. Well, if it is the case, I think it is the case. I get 30 minutes of glory of being at the top of Chase Reiner's Brand SERP on YouTube, which I'm really happy about, and I'll take. 30 minutes is good enough for me.
Yeah, most definitely. But either
so we were
way,
talking
yeah.
about user signals that you can generate, pushing this engagement, but also reviews.
Yeah. So like
Sorry, go
for
ahead.
me, like, again, I was talking about how I'm like more focused on white hat than I am on black hat. And,
Brilliant.
you know, and so for like user signals for me, like the best way I've found from a white hat perspective is to start giving out as much value as you can, something like a video, something like a talk like this. And then obviously you're going to have two offers. You're going to have your paid offer, which is something like, oh, hey, go grab my my course or grab my, my checklist, whatever the thing is that you want people to buy. And then, it could even be an affiliate. And this is not just on SEO. It could be on anything, right? And then generally you also want to have your free offer, which is, by the way, I created this free video series. You can go check it out on this website. You don't have to pay anything. And that way you can start building relationships, because I really think the key to building a brand these days and being able to build those signals in a white hat way is to be able to be really good at two things: driving traffic or views, and being able to build relationships with that traffic. If you can't do both, if you can't build an audience that's going to engage with your brand, wherever it is, if it's a blog post, if it's a video, if you can't build an audience and continually capture that traffic and remarket what you're doing so that you can build those engagements, other people with bigger audiences are going to be able to outrank you because they can get all those signals, right?
Yeah.
Now, let me talk. Can I talk really quickly about why I actually decided to get into doing white hat versus the black hat way of things, and why user engagement's always been such? Okay.
Anybody with a shirt like that can have a minute to talk about whatever they want, and this is your
awesome.
minute.
So I just want to say, by the way, everybody, and look, I try not to get I try not to get emotional or get into any weird like too much background history, but I do want to say that I grew up. I always wanted to be number one at what I did. And so this was before I even found out about what SEO was. I remember like being like 15 or 16, I was taking guitar lessons. I was doing karate. I was doing all this stuff. And I just remember, like, I always wanted to be the best, but then I would quit. I would get like halfway up the ladder, and I would just stop. I don't know why. I just couldn't finish. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can I interrupt? Can I ask a question? Because actually, I went through lots of stages. I've similar kind of things to you. I didn't do karate though. I did ballet at one point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, and chess and football and rugby and hockey and all sorts of other things. And it's kind of similar. I gave up or stopped when I realized, like you, I'm not going to be as good as I need to be to satisfy myself.
Right.
And then I would say, okay, well, let's go on to something else, because I know I'm never going to break that glass ceiling. Sorry, that was my 40 cents worth.
And I can totally relate, because, like, for me, I always wanted to be better. It wasn't that I wanted to be good. I just wanted to be like better than everybody else. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was like an insecurity thing or what it was. I just wanted to like almost be recognized in a way. I wanted like for people to like somehow respect me. Obviously like at that time, I think is as well, like when you're younger, you're trying to almost prove yourself to the world, and you want to like let everybody know that you're something. And so again, the only reason I'm telling you this is because it leads into why I cared so much about doing SEO and doing marketing the way I have done it in the last 4 years. So I grew up that way. I gave up pretty much everything I started. I pretty much gave up. And so I remember I was working at an SEO agency. I was making a decent amount of money, and I left so that I could move into a garage. At the time when I lived in Santa Barbara in California, it was very expensive. It still is. It's one of the most expensive towns to live in. And I was paying.
You moved into a garage because you wanted to start your company in the garage, like all it.
Because I wanted to build the generic stereotype story. No, it's because I just couldn't afford it. Right. I had I think I had like $6,000 or $7,000 in the bank account. The garage was almost $1,000 a month, and I had no income after I left. So I started working. I remember I had like one client that was paying me $300 a month. And the entire time I remember people were telling me, hey, Chase, you got to build links. You got to do SEO this certain way. And I always struggled with it. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do, first of all, I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. Second of all, I left this job so that I could go out and do a YouTube channel because I wanted to be the best on YouTube. That was my goal. I wanted to, be the most well-known SEO guy on YouTube and just be really good at SEO in general. And I just remember everybody, even especially like 4 years ago, everybody was doing link building. If I said anything about building links about not building links, I would just get roasted. And I remember just being in all these communities and I was getting kicked out of communities. I was getting, if you go into certain communities at this point and you type in Chase Reiner memes, you'll see like hundreds of posts of memes of people saying, oh, I don't build links. And it's like a picture of me but it's on like on a funny GIF and everybody's laughing at it.
Yeah, that's kind of strange because I've never built links and I've always said, well, I don't like building links. Nobody's ever done that to me. Maybe, oh, no, I know why. You're famous and I'm not.
So I was going to say, I think a lot of the time what happens is when you start to get known, there's plenty of people that I think weren't building links when I wasn't building them. But I think what happens is that when you start to get a little bit of spotlight on you, people almost use that, especially when you're not really well known at all. If you're kind of like, remember, I only had a couple thousand subscribers and like that's the worst place because if you have some sort of recognition, then people are like, oh, okay, whatever, that's his deal. But the second you only have a few thousand subscribers or a couple thousand people following you, it's so much easier for people to grill you and to take it personally, right? I used to take all the criticism, whether it was good or bad, just so like seriously, and now it's like it's not a thing for me anymore. But anyways, so past all the story. The entire time that I've done this stuff, and I've had my YouTube channel a little over 4 years now.
Yeah, I didn't like when you said only 2,000. I've only got 768, so I'm feeling a bit pathetic.
I meant that when you have a following that maybe like less people are recognizing than if like let's say you were on YouTube and you had a few thousand views per video, that kind of thing. When you get to that point, it seems that people tend to attack you less. And what I found is that when you have less, like when you're kind of starting out, when you're in that, you're trying to break through to that kind of more influencer. I'm not saying that you're not an influencer. I'm not saying.
No, I know. So I was teasing you, Chase. That was just me being silly. I mean, get back to your story. Sorry. So you've.
Right. Okay. So anyways, I forgot where I was at, where I left off. Something about.
You built up your channel. People, I would assume, stopped telling you were wrong because you were doing such a good job.
Okay, well, and so what happened is because I was live streaming everything I was doing. So I had started getting clients. I told the clients, I said, look, if you want me to do SEO on your website, you have to let me put it on YouTube. And a lot of people said no. I lost a lot of sales because of that. They don't want their secrets to what's ranking their website on YouTube. Totally makes sense. But the other people who just wanted to rank #1 didn't necessarily care. They expected that I was somewhat good at what I did because I had all these videos, I had some experience. And so I have a ton of videos on YouTube of me actually over the shoulder, me actually clicking on the buttons and then taking people from no rankings at all to ranking #1, sometimes locally, sometimes nationally. There's tons of content over there. But this isn't to brag. This is just to tell you, like, every single time I did this, though, I always pitched, hey, guys, I'm going to rank this site. I'm not going to do any link building. I'm not going to do anything except all natural stuff that I do on my own websites and what I've been trying to do for the last 4 years, because I really firmly believe that you can rank a website and you can build traffic to any asset you want without building links. So I got a ton of success. I made a good amount of money. I got a lot of rankings for clients. And long story short, I don't even really do client work anymore. I mainly just do affiliate stuff now. I rank my own websites. I work with brands, and I drive traffic and sales to them because that's what I really like doing. I love, like, for instance, this is totally my environment. Being on an interview, being on a webinar, being on a presentation, whether it's me interviewing or somebody else. I just love it. And I know that you do too, because I see how great you are with talking to everybody. And
because I just won't shut up, basically. I love it because I keep talking and talking. But yeah, I mean, 100%, I'm with you on that. And I love the idea of kind of saying, I mean, part of this for me is the entertainment aspect. part of it is the learning aspect, and part of it is just having a really good conversation. I've seen we've got Paul Lovell and Josh Hunt here. Welcome to you guys. There's a little bit of rudeness going on in the chat, but we will avoid it because we are above it, Chase.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. Well, there you go. Easy peasy ranking for Chase, Reiner, Jason Barnard. Nothing could be easier. Not a single link in sight.
Right, it's funny. I was looking at my YouTube channel the other day, and this is actually before I kind of made the switch. Because here's how I I started out doing services. I remember I just wanted an agency so bad, and I did all these different ways of running the agency. I outsourced, I did in-house, I hired people in America, I hired people that weren't in America, all these things. And I just hated doing the services, so I stopped doing that. And then I switched to doing courses. I did it, a ton of sales doing courses. And then I realized, I don't really like doing courses either, because I would much rather just do like this kind of stuff, give people things away for free. I love giving away free information, getting people to engage.
But then the problem is, how do you make money out of it?
Well, and then you go to affiliate, right? Because when you're doing affiliate, then you're just bringing traffic in, and then you're promoting other people's products that you believe in, which is also awesome. I mean, you could still do all three, but then obviously, you just do the things that you really like. It's a lot different to have one client versus 20 clients, right? If you're just doing, and it's a lot different if you're doing it for fun, just because you like doing, let's say working with a client, versus having to work with 20 clients in order to survive every month, and then you're just constantly on the phone, that kind of thing. But
sorry, coming back to what you were saying earlier on, you were saying I really wanted to be the best. Now, very personal question: do you think you're now doing, or you are the best in the industry, or have you stopped wanting to be the best or needing to be the best, and you're just happy being really good?
I think that's probably the best question. I was so again, let me just talk about the transition. So before I was competing with everybody, I had so many enemies. I was getting on podcasts and I was telling people, no, you're wrong. You just don't know because you're not doing the way I'm doing it. You're not doing the link building. I mean, you're not doing the Chase Reiner method. Yeah. And so I wound up creating all these enemies basically. And I just thought it was so important for me to tell everybody else that this is the best way. And so again, like what happened is recently I looked at my YouTube channel. It was probably like 3 or 4 months ago. And I saw, it said in the audience, it said, your top percentage of people by far, it was like 50 or 60%, are people that are just like into entertainment and movies. Oh, and I was like, well, that's very weird, because I would expect most of them to, the next one was technology, but I was expecting most of them to be like technology, business owner, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, well, if that's the case, and I really know that I think that I'm more of an entertainer than anything. I like bringing in just like an audience. I like being on stage. I was like, okay, well, I think I'm competing with the wrong people. All these SEO people that I'm telling are wrong. I should be bringing these people in and talking to them about, all the things that they're doing that could be right. Why am I trying to compete with them if they're just part of the show? Right. And so now I get to, the cool thing is now that I'm creating all these friends again, a lot of people that I was actually enemies with, I'm now friends with now, because I came back to them and said, hey, look, I was totally wrong. I would love to hear about your stuff. And so now I get to bring people on, like the black hats and all the people that I never got to hear from. Right. And I get to go, oh, holy cow, you guys got all kinds of things that I never even knew about. And maybe I don't agree with it, but I get to learn all the time. And that part's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, this podcast has been an experience of actually learning from a lot of people who know all that stuff. I didn't have to go through the making enemies part. I mean, I've just made loads of friends who are sharing loads of information. I mean, I think it's a wonderful industry from that point of view. There's so much sharing going on, so much giving going on. And we had a conversation between Aleda Solis, Dawn Anderson, myself, and Andrea Volpini earlier on about knowledge panels, because Aleda is brilliant. Aleda Solis, if you type Aleda into Google, her knowledge panel comes up and all the results are about her. So she actually owns the brand SERP just for her first name, which is astounding. So she's my new hero or heroine, depending on how you look at it. And she was saying, and this is interesting, she was saying there is an Aleda who is a model who's also famous. Why have I got the SERP and not her? And the answer is from Dawn Anderson, because of probability. The probability that people are searching for you is actually higher than it is for that model. Especially, I mean, in our industry, everybody knows a lot of people are searching for her. And so what she's managed to do is dominate her own first name. And what I liked about that, it was an exchange between 4 or 5 different people within the industry, including myself, about kind of what's happening, why it's happening, and how it's interesting, and how it might help other people. Awesome. Sorry, I'm getting a bit fluffy and Pooh Bear about this, aren't I?
100%. And that's why I think when you see the people on top, you look at people that are ranking for all kinds of stuff, like Brian Dean or Neil Patel, and you see like they're just dominating. You know, they're ranking for things like keyword research and things like just crazy terms. Even like SEMrush and Ahrefs, if you look those up, they show up, right? And so like, why is it that they just dominate these SERPs? Is it because the content they're creating is so amazing that everybody's just like, I've never seen content like this? No, because even the brands like SEMrush and Ahrefs, they have their own documentation that's like 10 times more thorough that you can go read. But the truth is that you look at their audience, and they have these email lists with 500, 600,000 people on it, and YouTube channels where they do one video and they get 40, 50,000 views in the first day.
And you're saying what they're doing is winning on engagement. And I mean, Google knows that people are terribly interested in what they've got to say. So pretty much anything they write or anything they create is going to get pushed to the top, because they've got this historical path that they've proven to Google time and time and time again that people are truly interested in what they've got to say. Is that about it?
And on top of that, yes. And on top of that, I think any content they create, because they have such big communities, it's that proof. It's that having when somebody goes into a video or they see a blog post and there's 500 other people commenting, what do they think they have to do? Right? It's about being a part of something that people think they see as working. So it's not even just about how the algorithms see it. It's actually about how the real users see it as well. When you have a huge following that really like is showing, hey, yeah, look, there's something happening here that's really big. The content doesn't even have to really be that great. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. And that comes back to what you were saying earlier on, is building relationships with the audiences. And in fact, the whole shebang, to kind of conclude this thing, is about relationships. It's about entities and relationships. We're entities. We have a relationship. My brand is an entity. It has a relationship with the topic that it's specialized in. I have a relationship with my brand. I can support my brand through that relationship. But my brand or my products and my content have relationships with my audience. And it's very important with all of those entities, all of those relationships, to communicate to Google that those relationships are strong and long-lasting and powerful, and then it will push your content to the top. Would that more or less conclude it?
100%. But I think the question we really need to be asking is, what are the things you need to do to build these relationships? Because that's where I've been focusing like most of my time over the last 4 years, is how do you connect with your customers on a mass level, but also on an emotional level? Well,
sorry, can we finish with this question? Because I think this is a really important. No, sorry, I'm not saying stop talking. I'm saying I'm actually really interested in this, because once you get to scale, how can you possibly maintain those relationships? I can't see how you can do it. I've got 768 subscribers, and I'm doing a really bad job of maintaining any kind of relationship. Sorry.
No.
So how do you do it?
So for me, like, this is, again, where I focus all my time. The theory is that while you're spending all your time building rankings, if you focus on rankings, hopefully you'll get them. But what happens once the person gets to the page? What happens once the viewer is watching the video? When people are here right now, how did they actually feel about it? It's one thing to have a ranking, but if you can't connect with somebody on an emotional level or build a relationship with them, the ranking almost means nothing. Like we see people with 500,000 subscribers who get 1,000 views on a video. It means that I've
wondered about that. So, sorry, excuse me. I saw that the other day, and I was wondering about it. I was thinking that's a bit weird. And what's the explanation? Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's because if you're not continually connecting with people on an emotional level, they're not going to come back. And content is growing so frequently that that competition is no longer a ranking. Look. So if you think about Google, you think about these different platforms, the reason why they're creating these content distribution algorithms is because people only have 24 hours in a day. And the best way for people to get what they want is by brands being able to figure out whether these people have an emotional connection to that actual brand or not. Like that sounds crazy even to me, it sounds crazy, but I think that's really what they're trying to do, is they're trying to understand whether or not these people feel positive or negative feelings towards what they're interacting with based on the way they interact with it. And so how do you create these emotional connections where people want to stay on the video for 20 or 30 minutes during a live stream, or they want to message you every day and say, hey, I love what you're doing. I'll do anything for this brand. I'll go and like and comment and whatever, right? And you don't even have to ask them. And so I think the real truth is it comes back to the story. I think part of the reason why I was telling my story earlier and why I tell my story a lot more these days is because I think people are more interested in your story than they are about your result. And what I mean by that is that when you break down where you were, people want to see, they don't want to see you just be a hero, right? They already know if you have some sort of following, they know that you've been able to achieve something. But they're more interested in what was the struggle you had to go through that they can relate to get to your point. And so the thing that I do a lot now is I'll say the garage story a ton. I usually talk about it. It's not important to me. I don't really care about the garage. For me, it was actually not even that bad. I was having a lot of fun back then, even though I was working like crazy. But it was a new experience for me. And I think a lot of the time, most people, they either downplay their past or they overplay their past. They go, oh, it's so bad because they're trying to. It's not about that. It's about removing yourself from the situation and thinking, okay, how can I actually help somebody with my story? And how can I actually relate to those people? And so anytime I do videos now, or anytime I do a post, or anytime I'm inviting people to do something with me, I'm generally going to tell them a little story about why that thing's important. And so now that I start playing stories into what I'm doing, people seem to connect with me at a higher level. And I seem to do a lot better as a brand because of it. Let me give you an example. Let's say we were doing a review on SEMrush. Instead of me just saying, hey, here's how you use SEMrush.
Here we have the special offer by SEMrush. How terribly, awfully advertisingly that is. So we're talking about SEMrush. Yeah, go.
So let's say we're talking about SEMrush, and let's say we wanted to get some traffic over to this link, right? The first thing we're going to do the first thing we're not going to do is make it into a tutorial. Oh, here's how you do SEO in 2020, and here's how you use SEMrush. That tutorial is tons of people have already created that, right? The difference is when you come in, you go, hey, I want to tell you a little bit about how I actually got to this point where I'm using this tool and why I'm using it, and what was the struggle around not having this tool before that, and how did I feel, and where was I in my life during that point, right? And so I could say, hey, before I found SEMrush, before I found any of these tools, I had no idea what I was doing. I would do little SEO audits on a notepad, and I would just tell people what was wrong with their websites, and I would never keep the clients, and I wouldn't be able to make any money, and the struggle was terrible. But then, eventually I found tools like this one, and, look at all the cool things you can actually, so that phrase right there, the way you frame it up to it, that opens a connection for people. And so when you open the connection, what you'll start to see is that comments start flooding in, engagement starts flooding in, people are messaging you. I get personal emails all the time. Oh, Chase, you're so inspirational. And the funny thing is that I'm not doing anything that I haven't already been doing it per se. Like I'm not any different by saying these stories, or I'm not any much more interesting, I don't think. But what happens is that, again, I think a lot of times when people are watching you, or they're interacting with your brand, they want the ability to open up. It's almost like if you're going on a date or something, you don't want to just talk about yourself. You want to talk about who you are and how that relates to the other person and why you feel connected. And so when you open these emotions for people, even when I was telling you my story earlier, I go, oh yeah, I felt that way too, right? And when you open these connections for people, it's so easy to give away a free SEO checklist if you make it about your struggle in the garage. It's not easy to give away a free SEO checklist if you're like, hey, this is the most technical schema markup checklist on the market. nobody cares. I mean, they do care, right? There's a
no,
niche.
yeah, you do have a niche, as you said, a niche audience of people who really do care about that. But the whole idea of kind of having stories attached to stuff. I did a podcast episode yesterday with a lovely chap called Matthew about failures, and start from a failure and tell us where it went from there. And that was actually a lot of fun. And I actually quite enjoyed telling my failures. That'll be out next year. But I mean, I've got so many of them to share. I mean, basically, I was going, he said, we're going to do 3. And I was saying, well, I've got a list of like 12 you can choose. And I think we've all got that. And it is nice as a human being sharing that. And I think it's probably, as you say, interesting to also hear it and relate to it. Brilliant stuff.
And oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You had something to say.
I don't want to go on too much on a
wonderful
tangent.
Conclusion of well, coming back to the link building or not link building and engagement. Basically, what you're saying is be real, and you will get that engagement as long as you're addressing the right audience.
Right, and so like even what you were saying a second ago is that I had all these different stories that I could tell. And so when you start thinking about those stories, it becomes a lot easier to build content. And I think that's the kind of the biggest thing that people have a hard time with, is that it's not that they can't create content. It's that they don't think there's anything worth saying. So they'll just wait and they'll go, oh, well, I have to have the most technical tutorial. I need to have the best blog post. I need to beat Brian Dean or whoever. And the truth is, it's not about how great your setup is. It's not about your camera. It's not about any of that. What it's about is being good at telling stories that people can relate to. It's about creating something that people can opt into when it comes to a relationship. And this could be as simple as sending you an email or a message, as long as you can somehow control your traffic at the end of the day. And by control your traffic, you know what I mean? It's like, having somebody on an email list or on a Facebook message or wherever it is. Because you want to be able to, when you push a button, you want people going over somewhere. You don't want to have to wait for the YouTube algorithm or whoever to distribute your content for you.
Which is taking control, and I think that's very nice. I was talking to Ryan Foland on his podcast the other day, and he was saying, "Oh, brand SERPs, yeah, it's all wonderful." I keep saying they've got to be positive, accurate, and convincing. He's saying, "Well, actually, the big point," and Andrea Volpini from WordLift told me this, and I didn't listen to him, so more fool me. Is if you don't control it, there is danger that something nasty is going to turn up, and it's all about control. Just the word control. I'm also saying I have an audience, and if I give that control over to Google completely or to YouTube completely, I'm losing out. I need to be able to have some control over that audience.
Well, yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like you can meet somebody at a bar, you can meet somebody at a meetup group, but if you don't walk away with their phone number, it's just you're going to not see them again until you hopefully go back and maybe they're there, maybe you're there. You don't want to chance it. You want to make sure that you can confirm that the relationship will be there. But the third thing I wanted to say is that, consistency. So everybody can tell a story a day, even if it's a paragraph. What I do all the time is I'll go on Facebook and I'll start thinking about just a story. I go, what's something that I'm thinking about today? And for instance, the other day I did a story about how when I was younger, I had a gaming addiction. I used to play online video games, and I remember I spent all this money. I wanted to be the best at the game, and I realized how that related to SEO.
Sorry, that comes back again. I want to be the best.
Right, exactly, and it always comes back to that. And so that's why I'm saying, like, for me, I can create these stories every single time, like every single day. I mean, I could do it easily, and I can relate that to what I'm doing today. What's different about how I was at a deficit before and what am I doing today? And so now, whenever I do something like that, it's a very easy formula for me, at least. People seem to interact like crazy. And I really think it comes down to this. Most people have some sort of history that's a pain point. The reason why somebody didn't do a video or they didn't do whatever it is that they got to do, it's because they had some sort of relation to failure in the past. And so the more you can relate to them and say, hey, look, my brand is going to help you get past that failure, that pain point in your head. That's when people follow you religiously, because they really believe that you are the solution to their pain.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you very much. I think that comes to the end. It's a lovely conclusion to it. And I've just realized this is a very special episode because it's the only episode out of 150 where I didn't sing the introduction song. So I will sing the introduction song. A quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Chase Reiner.